The mad scramble to placate the Tea Party. Republicans throwing Karl Rove under a bus for being too sophisticated. I guess in the way the aristocrats were too sophisticated in the joke, the aristocrats. That's next, but first get out your pitchforks and torches. Time for tonight's worst persons in the world. The bronze to Christine Flynn, an inmate at the Teachita Correctional Institute in Wisconsin. She tried to forge... Goodness, stop looking at me like that, lady. She tried to forge court documents to steal money from another prisoner. Oh, that's bad enough. She pleaded guilty. It'll cost her up to 22 more years. But worse, on the forged document, she signed the judge's name and misspelled it. Badly misspelled it. The judge was Stephen Winkie. She spelled it W-I-N-K-I-E. Judge Stephen Winkie. How could my plan miss? The runner-up, Governor Butch Otter of Idaho, he and his campaign tour appeared at the public library in Jerome, Idaho on Saturday afternoon for a town hall, much to the surprise of one of the librarians who noted a busload of people showed up and just invaded the library. It was chaotic because the library staff was not forewarned, nor were the people who had reserved the library 3 weeks earlier for a wedding reception. 20 guests suddenly appeared to cut the cake, only to find Governor Otter answering a question about wolves. Otter and his followers eventually left. To their great credit, a state representative and a county commission candidate stayed to clear the folding chairs and the debris from the room. But the winner, Bob Dudley, the former U.S. head of BP and now chairman of the entire outfit, he doesn't need to wait till that now delayed investigation report into his company's disaster at Deepwater Horizon to know who was really at fault. Mr. Dudley knows it was the media. Addressing a British lobbying group, he said there had been, quote, a great rush to judgment by a fair number of observers before the full facts could possibly be known, even from some in our industry. The public fear was everywhere. Shortly after Mr. Dudley's poorly planned, poorly built, and poorly maintained piece of crap well exploded, killing 11 men, and started to spew oil into the Gulf unchecked for what proved to be 87 days. A group of scientists estimated that the flow rate was 70,000 barrels a day. Mr. Dudley called that, quote, scaremongering. He insisted the best estimate of flow rate was 5,000 barrels a day. A government panel later calculated the flow rate at 62,000 barrels a day. Mr. Dudley was full of crap and remains such. Remember that chorus Jon Stewart got together in April to instruct the people at Fox how they should go, you know, Rupert themselves? We need a new one for Bob Dudley, CEO of BP and damned six-cylinder, high-octane liar. Today's worst person in the world. When you can't read both parts of a two-part tweet, that's pretty sad. Sarah Palin interferes in a diplomatic effort to free Americans detained in Iran because it included birthday wishes to Ahmadinejad, and she didn't approve of them. And after this, she says no more television until after the election. What's this? Very possibly the most nonsensical answer to a policy question in this election cycle. And if you're waiting for the conclusion of James Thurber's epic The Catbird Seat with the press of news on this pre-election Friday, it is available to you online right now at our website, countdown.msnbc.com. The two wars that we're in right now is exactly what we're in. Foreign policy statement from the would-be Republican senator from Nevada. And when the State Department issues a subtle diplomatic tweet wishing Iran's president a happy birthday and suggesting he celebrate by releasing the detained American hikers, you know what she does? Yes, she tweets we shouldn't have wished him a happy birthday. There are corpses smarter than she is. Sarah Palin undercuts the State Department's overture to get Americans freed in Iran and disses Joe Miller. That's next, but first get after pitchforks and torches. Time for tonight's worst persons in the world. The bronze to ABC News. Media Matters confirms that Andrew Breitbart, the comically dishonest propagandist, has been hired to provide analysis for ABC during Tuesday's election coverage, appearing in an ABC News town hall meeting from Arizona. Analyze the elections for ABC News? The guy who couldn't analyze a speech from a low-level employee of the Department of Agriculture? The question was immediately raised in our Countdown office. What could a Breitbart possibly do during an actual news organization's coverage of the elections? The answer? Fart. The silver, Jesse Kelly, the Tea Party and Republican candidate for the Arizona 8th Congressional District. He was a guest on a radical right-wing radio show and was asked by the host Mark Levin about Democratic dirty tricks. And Kelly just sort of took off.
People have video of them busing people across from our southern border. We're a border district. They literally bus people across from Mexico to have them vote at the polls on Election Day, give them a meal, and then bus them back. It's been done in the past, so we're really fighting against that down here.
Mr. Kelly's seen Mexicans being bussed across the Arizona desert. He must be high on peyote, or the supposed videotape for that matter. As Mr. Kelly's campaign spokesman himself pointed out, nobody could have seen them bussing Mexicans to vote illegally in Arizona this year because the election isn't until next Tuesday. As to what happening in the past, a Nexus search turned up no arrests, no investigations, no reports of Mexicans being brought in by bus to vote in previous Arizona elections. Would-be Congressman Kelly apparently just made it up. Or maybe some of those headless torsos that Arizona's Governor Jan Brewer claims were found in the Arizona desert told him about them. But our winner, Sharron Angle, a new high in low. A Las Vegas TV station has repeatedly been rebuffed trying to get a straight answer out of her on her national security and military policies. They finally tracked her down at McCarran Airport in Vegas.
We have many Air Force people at Nellis Air Force Base. We have 2 wars that we're prosecuting right now. You haven't talked about how you would prosecute those wars. No answer at all? You are literally staying silent about the 2 wars that we're in right now.
You know, the 2 wars that we're in right now is exactly what we're in.
Well, you have me there. Angle's campaign had 2 responses. It directed that reporter, Nathan Baca, to its website for a policy statement on the wars, which turns out to be 1 sentence long. And then it banned all TV crews from its remaining campaign events. Sharron, freedom except freedom of the press Angle, today's worst person in the world.
Yeah. What? Absolutely. Say it again.
Part 2 of Thurber's wonderful, mean destruction of the local rube, a friend of the earth. Next, first get out your pitchforks and torches. Time for today's nominees for the worst persons in the world. Not really. The bronze. Well, I guess it goes to Landon Burse, who leads this group. This is Club Envy, a group of teenage step dancers who'd raised enough money in their native Jacksonville to get to New York for guest shot on the BET network program Wild on Wednesday. What they didn't realize was that their next to last stage of their drive, the late afternoon rush through the Lincoln Tunnel from Jersey into Manhattan, also got Wild on Wednesday. Stuck in unmoving traffic on the helix-shaped approach to the tunnel, from which the city skyline is beautifully and tantalizingly visible, somebody decided their only chance to make the TV show in time was to run for it. The next thing you knew, 8 kids in their outfits, unfortunately their camouflage-colored outfits, were running through the traffic in the Lincoln Tunnel. They got to the other side all right to find the FBI NYPD Joint Terrorism Task Force waiting for them with guns drawn. It was all sorted out. The same cops wound up offering the poor kids a police escort to the show, but by then they'd already missed it. This is why you always dress as Vegas showgirls. The runner-up, Rick DeGuerin, the attorney for Tom DeLay in the illegal PAC money swap trial in Texas. DeGuerin has argued that DeLay was not involved in the day-to-day operations of the PACs who didn't know about the money swap. He introduced scheduling calendars into evidence that he thought proved DeLay had only met with the head of the PAC, Jim Ellis, weeks after the swap was made. Except on the calendar, it showed DeLay and Ellis going to the same meeting just a few hours after the PAC man, Ellis, had taken out a blank check for the PAC to make the swap. Lawyer DeGuerin's response to that remarkable gaffe? I just missed that one. But our winner is former President Bush. Our friend David Corn saw this in Bush's book Decision Points on the non-discovery of the non-existent weapons of non-mass destruction. That was a massive blow to our credibility, my credibility, that would shake the confidence of the American people. No one was more shocked or angry than I was when we didn't find the weapons. I had a sickening feeling every time I thought about it. I still do. As Mr. Corn wrote, really? Even on March 24th, 2004?
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere. Nope, no weapons over there. Maybe under here.
So you had a sickening feeling all that time? As we had about you. George W. Bush, hypocrite, and today's worst person in the world. Fridays with Thurber and the glass in the field and a note at the end. Next, first get out your pitchforks and torches. Time for today's nominees. The worst persons in the world. The bronze shared by the Saudi newspaper Al Hayat and that country's news website sabq.org. They printed and posted this story. In his latest effort to find common ground with Republicans in Congress, President Barack Obama said today that he was willing to agree that he is a Muslim. In agreeing that he is a Muslim, Mr. Obama is sending a clear signal that he's trying to find consensus. My place of birth has been and always will be negotiable. Al Hayat's headline, Obama doesn't mind coming out as a Muslim if that will satisfy the Republicans. The article they took as news was written by our friend, satirist Andy Borowitz, for his humor site, The Borowitz Report. Oops. Runner-up Dick Cheney. You will recall the threat by Nigeria to indict him and the other leaders of Halliburton for bribery there by then Halliburton subsidiary KBR, $180 million to get government contracts worth $6 billion. The Global Post quotes officials in the Nigerian government who say Halliburton has offered to make a plea bargain with Nigeria's Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. No jail time for Cheney or the three other Halliburton executives charged, just a fine of $500 million. But our winners, James Naughtie and Andrew Marr of the BBC. Within hours of each other, each of the announcers tried to mention the British government's Secretary of Culture, Jeremy Hunt. Culture Hunt. If you can't imagine the blooper they each made, consider the young sportscaster who once tried to read this 9-second kicker when he actually only had 6 seconds left in the show. Finally, country singer Roy Clark has won the Top Gun division at the annual Grand National Quail Club Hunt in the Mecca of quail hunting, Enid, Oklahoma. That was me, RKO Radio Network, 1981. Culture Hunt, Quail Club Hunt. James Naughtie and Andrew Marr of the BBC, today's worst persons in the world.
It's all mixed up. It's all mixed up.
Kevin Spacey on his new film in which he portrays Jack Abramoff. He's here next. First, get out your pitchforks and torches. Time for today's nominees. The worst persons in the world. Something special. It's Old Timers Day. At first, you may not remember these names, but I think they might just come back to you. The bronze to Lou Dobbs, who isn't retired. He's lingering along in well-earned radio obscurity, and he does not like the lame duck session.
It's an insult to every American that this Congress would even think. Taking up substantive legislation without hearings. Driving it through in a lame duck session simply to subvert the will of the people. Because that is what this is. I mean, this is lame duck sessions being run not much differently than if there were a coup d'etat of our government.
You should listen to Lou about coup d'etats. He was there when the guys behind the French Third Republic knocked off Emperor Louis Napoleon in Paris in 1870. The runner-up, here's somebody else you didn't know was still working, Rush Limbaugh. Maybe the real terrorists who we face here on Capitol Hill. I mean, really, who's doing a good job? I don't mind what this country stands for is dingy, harried, and angry boy. I mean, look, they call it agitated and angry. I don't we can come. No. But you know why you don't hear a lot from or about Limbaugh anymore? Because he's gone crazy. One too many cherry blow pop. But our winner, my God, is Bill O'Reilly is still talking? The reference to the well-known popularity deity is not accidental. Bill O's most recent quote column, unquote, entitled, Keep Christ in Unemployment. There comes a time when compassion can cause disaster. You open your home to scores of homeless folks, you will not have a home for long. There is a capacity problem for every noble intent. There are millions of Americans who are not responsible, and the cold truth is that the rest of us cannot afford to support them. Guys like Congressman Jim McDermott don't make distinctions like that. For them, the baby Jesus wants to provide, no matter what the circumstance. But being a Christian, I know that while Jesus promoted charity at the highest level, he was not self-destructive. The Lord helps those who help themselves, does he not? I don't know, pal, because the phrase, the Lord helps those who help themselves, is not in the Bible, which is where one has to assume O'Reilly is getting his nonsensical Catholic school dropout holier-than-thou cant. Here are two things that are in the Bible, one about O'Reilly's topic and one about O'Reilly. Luke 14, verses 12 to 14. When you give a feast, invite the poor, the maimed, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed because they cannot repay you. You will be repaid at the resurrection of the just. And on a more personal note, Judges 15:16, and Samson said, with the jawbone of an ass, heaps upon heaps, with the jaw of an ass have I slain 1,000 men. Bill Jawbone of an Ass O'Reilly, today's worst person in the world.
That's how they connected those dry bones. Do, 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 do.